Hi, I'm Lucas,
And I'm Brian.
and this is the Quax podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Brian, how's it going, man?
It's going well. How are you going?
I am doing good. Well, I'm kind of doing okay. I got in a little fender bender.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, I was, those accidents when you're in a parking lot and you're both backing up at the same time?
Yes.
And usually it's like a 50-50 split, on fault. Well, I wasn't backing up. I had stopped for like 5 seconds and this lady hit me. And the insurance company is still saying 50-50.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm kind of fighting with them trying
What
to get
about
that
cameras in the lot?
Yeah, I've asked like stores around to see if there's, some kind of evidence that I could use, but there's nothing. It's
Maybe some
basically,
millennials just taking Insta stories?
yeah, not so much.
Oh, man. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's no big deal. I mean, my bumper's just a little dinged up, so it's probably going to have to be replaced, which is going to be a few $100, but,
Anytime you have to deal with the insurance companies, though, I mean, and how long have you been a faithful client of this insurance company?
It's not my insurance. It's her insurance. The lady who hit me.
Got you.
Yeah, and so it's especially fraught.
Okay. See, I thought it was one of those deals where you're both having to rely on your own. Okay.
No.
So, sorry about that.
Yeah, it sucks. Anyway,
You're still here.
I'm still alive. Yeah, nothing bad happened. Anyway, what's up with you? Anything new?
Well, just the never ending, or never ending, depending on your perspective.
Yeah, ever ending.
The ever ending. It feels like that sometimes. No, I'm doing well. It's that quest for serenity, that we all deal with. And I had kind of an interesting story. I had listened to a coworker recommend a product from Quality of Life called Saranelle, which has got GABA and some other awesome things in there just for anxiety. And I was like, yeah, that sounds fantastic. I'm going to give that a shot. So I tried it, and so did the customer got it. Pardon me. And then 2 days later, the customer came in and said, oh my gosh, this is really working for me. And I said, I think it's working for me too. And we were able to compare notes, and it was just one of those simpatico moments. I'm like, we're both Saranelle heads, we're using it, and it really does cut down on the chatter, some of that extra, because I don't know about you, dude, but my brain can get going. And,
really?
Yeah, and that's where the anxiety lies. I can't shut it up.
And what's in this?
There's regret. There's different, things. You mean in my anxiety, or in the product?
No, in the formula.
The formula. I know that there's some GABA. There's L-theanine.
Oh, okay.
And some other good things too.
Okay, cool.
But I'm impressed thus far. It's just a matter of keeping it going.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that things that lower anxiety are like super important. So I was listening to Jordan Peterson, who has some controversial views on politics, but his stuff about like self-help and psychology is really great. And one of the things he talks about is that if you take a rat and you put it in a new environment, it's like completely terrified. It's like completely anxious, and it will slowly venture out and explore its territory, and it keeps doing that as long as it doesn't die, And it's terrified, right?
Yes.
And so what he was saying was, sometimes we think that we're like, psychologists first thought that we were not scared, and then we learned to be scared. So like you weren't scared, and then like something bit you, and then you became scared of that thing that bit you, or something like that. But the truth is actually opposite that. You're scared all the time. You're always anxious and fearful, but your brain kind of holds it back when you're in an environment that is matched to your expectations.
So it's instinctual for us to be fearful.
Yeah, I mean, this was going off rats, and then they applied it to humans. So, I mean, maybe there's a gap there. But he was talking about psychologists and theories and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's like there's fear. Your brain is always ready to be afraid. But if you're around your family and you're around a place and like everything's in the place, your brain's like, oh, okay, you're fine. Then we can hold back that fear. But it's always got its finger kind of on the button being like, all right, is everything okay? And
I don't like being at the mercy of that button.
I know.
It scares me.
But
hey,
but yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's like when you're around anxious people Actually, there's one of the articles we're going to talk about from Mercola talks about people who are fearful, which is kind of interesting. So
Really?
yeah, maybe we should jump into that.
Let's get into it. Perfect segue.
Yeah, there's an interesting article on Mercola. It caught my eye. And
now Mercola, is that the lozenge?
no, that is the website.
Okay.
Dr. Mercola.
I was just going to explain it to people.
Yeah, he has a lot of supplements and stuff like that, but he actually has good news that comes up. Like I think next week we're going to have a news piece from him too. So I actually like some of his articles.
I love it.
Yeah. So anyway, there was a recent study in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology, and that sounds like the best journal ever. And in this study, researchers wanted to look at how different smells impacted people's ability to quit smoking. And so they gathered, some smokers, and they used like certain cues to determine their level of craving for cigarettes. And what they found was that when these smokers were exposed to scents that were rated as like pleasant smelling,
yes.
The amount of craving cues they exhibited went down compared to the people who were smelling things that were, not pleasant.
So less cravings when they smell something good.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Wow.
So the conclusion to the article is that basically pleasant smells can help you quit smoking by lowering your cravings. And the corollary is probably also true, which is, certain smells, maybe cigarette smells or whatever, they increase, cravings.
Right.
So that was not even the most interesting part. The article proceeds to get into how significant our ability to smell things is in our lives, and smells are, significantly associated with memories, and sometimes
Totally.
yeah, sometimes more so than what vision would tell us. We can see something and it won't ignite a memory like, grandma's home cooking or whatever.
Completely. I just thought about that this week. That's so funny. Okay,
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. So anyway, smell, it's a big deal in our interpersonal relationships and how people treat us. So this is what was really interesting. This was a research project they carried out at the, the Dentistry Skills Center in Oslo. So what they did was they have people wear t-shirts when they're doing something calming and when they're doing something that provokes anxiety and fear. Then they took these t-shirts and fitted them to practice dummies that dental students would work on. And they found that the practice dummies that wore the t-shirts from the people who were anxious and fearful received worse dental treatment than the ones who had the calm-smelling t-shirts.
Oh, great. So if you're scared of the dentist, you're going to get jacked.
Yeah, if you're scared at the dentist, it actually has a self-fulfilling prophecy to it.
Man.
Because the doctor feels that anxiety, feels that fear a little bit.
I'm in trouble.
And they think, well, this might be through the smell, because these people had these smelling t-shirts that were anxious or whatever.
Wow, so like a pheromone type thing, like an anti-pheromone.
Yeah, it's almost like the movies, they can smell the fear on you or something.
Wow.
I don't know.
No, that makes sense. I like that. You worked on that for a while, didn't you?
Yeah.
The smell of fear.
The smell of the fear on you. I just came up with that, right?
You're good.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, those people who love aromatherapy, they're probably onto something.
I actually think there is something to that. And that's funny because I said that I thought about that this week, that there was a smell, and then you even said grandma's cooking. There was a smell that reminded me exactly of my grandmother's basement in Michigan. And I mean, I could feel the textures of the bench when I smelled that. I mean, things that I wouldn't have gotten just from a picture even,
Whoa.
And then, so it was really cool. So exactly when you said that, I was like, oh my, and that hadn't happened to me in a long time. So
wow,
something to it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about sometimes when you smell something and the memory triggers, but it's not quite there. And you're like, oh, what is that? It's just almost there.
The olfactory scrapbook.
That's right. Yeah. So on to, the next weight loss tip, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think you're going to like this today. I think this is going to be interesting. And I don't know. We'll see. Okay. So I might reference today something called BMI, which is body mass index. And it's basically a ratio, if you don't know, of your height and your weight. And BMI, it's often used to kind of put you in these different categories like normal, overweight, obese, or morbidly obese.
Oof.
That one just sounds so bad, doesn't it?
I don't like it.
Morbidly obese.
I know I've been there, but it just
Have you really?
It sounds like, well, I'm 5'9", and I was 215 at one point, which is big for
Yeah,
a
you
guy
were
my
getting
height.
close.
A hobbit. So
Yeah.
I felt morbidly obese.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I felt like I was going to die just getting off the ground. I'm really getting off on a tangent here, but
okay.
I understand the saying.
Yeah, it's a rough saying. Anyway, it's not a perfect number, this BMI. It doesn't account for how much weight is like fat or muscle or bone. So there's actually bodybuilders out there who are like made of muscle, but their BMI would put them into the obese category. So it's not a perfect measurement, but for our purposes, we're going to assume you're not a bodybuilder and that a higher BMI means you have more fat on your body. And this tip is pretty straightforward, which is get more sunlight. In the last couple decades, sunlight has gotten a really bad rap, right?
Right.
Skin cancer incidence has shot way higher, and many medical authorities, they are foolishly counseling less sunlight to counteract these rising levels. And I say foolish because vitamin D levels are associated with lower amounts of many different cancers.
Okay.
And those cancers, they have lower malignancy when they do happen. So it's like we did not suddenly start getting more sun in the last 20 years. That's going to, make these skin cancer. So the rising rates of skin cancer, they're probably not because of sunlight,
dietary, whatever.
They're probably because of something else. And in fact, people who, as a whole, they get less sunlight today than they did in the past, and skin cancer rates are still going up.
Okay.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong, getting sunburnt, that's not great for you. After you get burnt, there is a cascade of like cytokines and inflammatory markers throughout your whole body. So really, I'm not saying go out there and get burnt, but moderate sunlight is seriously good for you, especially at certain times of day. So for men, sunlight can raise testosterone, and testosterone levels are inversely correlated with BMI. In other words, higher testosterone, lower BMI.
Okay.
There's also a very old study in the 1930s, which is where this came from, that exposed certain parts of men's bodies to the sun. And I couldn't actually find the study. It's way old. It's like 1939, so nobody has it. But I found a bunch of references to it. And because it's so old, it might be a little fishy. But it's like in that study, they found that exposing your torso raised your testosterone by 120%.
To sunlight.
Or UV rays, and other parts of your body, hint, hint,
yes,
raise it even further.
What?
So sunbathing in the nude for men is is an option. I don't do this, but this is what I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me either. I'm not going to try that at all.
The most interesting thing I found was not just for men, but it was for everyone, and it was by this Peter Light guy. And his actual name is Peter Light, and he studies light. It's stupid.
He didn't even have a choice.
That's right. He just came out of the womb ready to go. So he found some fascinating properties of fat. He was attempting to alter fat in a way that would produce insulin to help type 1 diabetics. And in that process, he discovered something about white subcutaneous fat, which is the type of fat we have basically all over our body, just under our skin. White fat is associated with metabolic problems, more so than its cousin, which you might have heard of, called brown fat, which is more metabolically active. It produces more heat. It's actually called brown fat because it has more mitochondria and blood in it, and so it looks browner.
Of course.
Yeah, anyway.
No, I like that because I was going, what constitutes black or brown and white?
Yeah, it's just more metabolically active, so it creates more heat, and so it's not associated with problems. So to give you a little background on what Peter Light found, there are these light-sensitive proteins in our eyes called melanopsin, and they're found in the retina, and they basically send signals to your brain about the light that they are being exposed to. So these signals then regulate different hormones like melatonin that synchronize your circadian rhythm. So it's basically the little things that are trying to figure out what time of day it is and what your body should be doing because of that time of day. So Peter, he was working with this white fat and trying to get it to produce insulin. And in one of his experiments, they found these same light-sensitive proteins in white fat. So, which is strange. What are they doing there? Why would there be light-sensitive proteins in fat under your skin that is never exposed to light?
That's strange.
Well, turns out blue light actually does get under your skin in very small amounts. Now, the light has to be very bright, so we're talking the big fusion reactor in the sky, not inside. And even then, it's only about 1 to 5% of the light that hits the fat under your skin. So it's not very much, and indoor lights won't work. And so what happens when this blue light from the sun hits your fat cells under your skin? Well, Peter tested this out in a lab, and after shining blue light on fat cells for a couple of weeks, he found that those fat cells had shrunk and contained less fat droplets than they had previously. This is also significant because smaller fat cells, they're less prone to inflammation than bigger fat cells.
Wow.
And they create less detrimental hormones metabolically.
Good all around.
So good all around. Not only that, they found byproducts of lipolysis, which means fat burning. So the results suggested that getting more sunlight actually helps burn fat and give you a better metabolism by lowering your exposure to some of these metabolic hormones that are not so good.
Wow.
So, I mean, yeah, it's...
And Arizona is the perfect place to test some of the, in small increments. Don't get burned out there.
Don't get burned.
But I agree. I think that the sun has gotten a bad rap.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you were talking about the ocular regulation of melatonin levels or in the release, because I've heard that sunglasses actually play a part in that. So wearing sunglasses throws off your natural circadian rhythms because it's tricking your body into thinking it's a different time of day. When you were designed, when these, obviously there was, you saw whatever was happening there. You didn't have a shield or a partial shield over your eyes. So by wearing that, it's actually throwing off our natural rhythms.
Yeah, I don't actually wear sunglasses anymore. I used to wear sunglasses all the time, but I found I was really sensitive to light when I would go outside without them, and so I stopped wearing them, and that kind of went away.
I have to wear them, but maybe I don't have to wear them. I've gotten to the point where I've relied on them because my eyes have just gotten used to it, and it is very bright here.
It is, yeah.
But yeah.
So anyway, this Peter, he was real conservative. When they asked him about these results, he said, we don't know how to activate these proteins with the sunlight. We don't know how much sunlight is needed or any of the details that would let us take advantage. But, it makes you think. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Now,
the next study I want to talk about is it's not more interesting, but it's more results oriented, that's for sure.
Okay.
So this is from 2014. It's from these Northwestern medicine researchers. And they took 54 individuals and they measured how much sleep they got, how much sunlight they got, how bright that light is, and what time of day they get that sunlight.
Okay.
And they found that the participants who had moderately bright light exposure in the morning had significant lower body mass indexes than those who had sunlight in the later in the day.
Huh.
Basically, the earlier this light exposure occurred, the lower their body mass index was. So in this study, light exposure, the benefits on BMI, they were independent of an individual's physical activity, caloric intake, sleep timing, age, the season, which basically means you don't have to change anything else about your diet or lifestyle to possibly get these benefits.
Right.
The morning light also accounted for 20% of the person's BMI. So 20% of your weight is determined by what time you are getting sunlight.
Whoa.
I know. It's wild, right? Mind blown.
Yes.
So in order to get these benefits, you need to get 20 to 30 minutes of bright light between 8 a.m. and noon. And the earlier it is, the more strongly it is associated with a lower BMI. And you need to get over 500 lux, which is a measurement of how bright it is. So most rooms are 200 to 300 lux. They're not very bright. But even a cloudy day outside gets, over 1,000 lux or so. So,
That's so cool.
If you read the paper in the morning or you have breakfast or whatnot, why not just eat it outside?
There is something different about the light in the morning and in the early afternoon too. It just feels different. I don't know how to describe it. So that I like that you're telling me this.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about full body sunbathing, just being outside early in the morning. Get that 20 to 30 minutes of exposure. It's going to get your circadian rhythm correctly synchronized. And the corollary is also true, meaning getting bright light at night has problems. So being exposed to blue light at night can basically mess up with your blood sugar levels. So there's another study by Northwestern Medicine, these same guys, and they showed that getting exposed to blue light in the morning or night could cause insulin resistance. Now, I know that sounds a little contradictory. It's wait, I don't want insulin resistance from getting light in the morning. This is contradictory. And yeah, it partially is. But at night, they found that the peak blood sugar levels were significantly higher. So the way I read this is basically blue light during the day causes a bit of insulin resistance no matter what, but at night it is the worst.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this also doesn't take away from the earlier results about getting light in the morning to have that lower BMI. So anyway, in my personal experience, getting sun definitely does cause some insulin resistance. If it is burning fat like Peter Light found, it makes sense, as the process of burning fat does cause insulin resistance. And I do want to put out a warning that you shouldn't go nuts and get sunburnt. Like I said, seriously, like work your way up to a nice tan over time. And everyone is different too. There's actually, this is an interesting story, but in Eastern cultures like India, they cover women's head in the scorching sun, but not men's when they're out working. Kind of an odd custom. You would think, okay, maybe that's just a cultural thing, right? Women with the hair and you got to cover the hair. Who knows, right? And on first glance, that's what you might think, but it's actually not. There were some researchers who wanted to figure out why this was happening and if there was a scientific basis for it. So they took hormones that are in men and women and they exposed cells to UV light in the presence of those hormones.
Okay.
And what they found was that in the presence of estrogen, UV light is more destructive to cells than in the presence of testosterone. So somehow these cultural practices had figured out that women might be more susceptible to sun damage as they have more estrogen in their tissues.
How did they figure that out? Because I'm sure this dates back a millennia.
Yeah, probably even longer. I mean, yeah, it's really interesting how something could figure that out. But it might suggest that, if you're on some types of birth control or estrogen replacement therapy, maybe go easy on the sunbathing. I don't think it was a huge deal, but it's just a caveat.
Yeah.
I want to throw in there.
No, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
The sun plays such a huge part in everything. I mean, but who would have thought the time of day, and that's so mind blowing to me.
Yeah. I mean, just get sunlight early in the morning and try not to get as much light at night, and your body will be happy. It'll thank you.
I'm doing it.
Yeah. I mean, my personal opinion from what I've read and like the study I've seen, the sun does burn fat and it can be a little stressful, like I mentioned in the previous podcast. I also think it raises metabolism. I've had a lot of experiences where I come in from having, been in the sun and I'm totally ravenous and hungry. So I think it does up your metabolism. I like to think of the sun kind of like exercise, and I treat it the same way. If you go too big too soon, you're going to hurt yourself. You want to start slow. You want to build up your strength. And if you do that, it can be really healthy for you.
I love it. I mean, I'm a bald man, and everyone always gets on me about not wearing a hat out in the desert. But I've built up my own tolerance, and I keep it monitored.
Wow.
But yeah, it just feels good. I don't know how to describe it.
Nice.
A bald man with the sun just beating right down directly on your head.
Feels good.
Yeah. It's very liberating. You should try it sometime. Give it 30 years. Give it a shot.
All right. And one thing I didn't touch on this that I thought was relevant too is I find when I go bathe in the sun, I'm less anxious, like what you were talking about earlier. My mind's calmer. It's more focused, less of the chit chatter. It makes it harder to be super into a lot of different things at once. You just kind of calm down and you're just doing one thing at a time.
Just being in the sun. Yeah.
After you come inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recalibrating. Well, very cool, man. Tons of information this week.
Yeah, there was a lot of information. That's interesting you mentioned the bald thing, because I was reading some articles this week about guys who have regrown some hair potentially by doing lots of intense massage on their head for years.
Really?
Yeah, and so there's a whole theory on balding, which is that it's actually scar tissue that's building up in your scalp. And so if you can break up that scar tissue, you can regrow hair.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Everyone's always trying to give me pointers on how to grow hair, and I got to be honest with you, I kind of like not having hair.
Yeah.
It's so easy. I can't even tell you the last time I said, hey, I'll catch up with you guys later. I got to go get a haircut. It doesn't happen. and I don't have to buy shampoo, and it's nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
But I appreciate the tip, and I will definitely be massaging just to see,
Well,
maybe
maybe
in one area of the head to see if it works.
Yeah, we'll do a show on it. Yeah, well, you're going to massage one area for 3 years and just be like, look, it worked. It regrew
The bangs.
in this little quarter area right up on top of my head.
Or the rat tail in the back.
Oh, gosh. You still grow hair back there, though, so it's...
No.
You do. It's the top of your head that's bald. It's not the...
But I don't
back.
grow any side or back hair, really. I keep it pretty shaved.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, from a hair loss perspective.
Yeah, I could grow it in the back.
It's possible.
It's not a great look for me, but yes, I could do it.
Okay.
I'd have to become a professor, but I could, and get a ponytail, but I could do it.
Yeah. All right. That's the podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.